welcome. Today we are talking operator gun belt. There are many out there, there are many like them, but this one is mine. All right, so we're gonna go around the belt and I'm gonna point out what I have, why I have it, and kind of where it fits on my body and why I set up that way. So first up, pistol mags. Why? Because you need ammo for your pistol. Now I run S-Tacs right here. These mags in here are 21 round mags for the SIG 320. We'll get to that. I run two. Why I run two is because of bad muscle memory, having to deal with the big army, and they said you had 3 pistol mags on you at all times. So I've just gotten used to it. So I run 2 on me. When you look straight, they're right about here, right? So, and why that is because they're very quick and easy for me to grab. Not that I'm saying you gotta be super fast, but because it's very easy and they're not very long. So when I'm bending down or crunching, I'm doing my scrunches, they don't cut into my abs, into my midsection, or get hung up on my armor. Because typically, you know, I set all of this up and I've learned all this and I was wearing armor. So that's why they're there. And then we'll move on to the next. Knife. Why? Because you should always have a knife. Got a pocket knife, fixed blade knife. Fixed blade knife, I run it in this configuration. So when it's on me, on my non-dominant hand, I can grab it just like that and I have the ability to cut, stab, or do whatever. If I ran it the other direction and I were to pull out, I would not be able to cut in a punching motion. So like this, I can punch out and cut there. So I run it there. I always run a fixed blade knife because there's just so many uses and it's faster than anything else if you need a knife, as opposed to digging in your pocket and pulling this out and opening it up or whatever. And there's also times where you just need a solid fixed blade. They're just more durable than a locking blade. This is a Benchmade. There's a lot out there. I also run a very big custom knife, but it is quite large and it does take up other room and it has some special applications. But what I recommend is something bulletproof that you're comfortable with. These aren't that expensive. And I run it right after my pistol mags. So my body, it sits right about here. And again, that works well because it doesn't dig into me. It's on the side of my hip. So I guess if I was really off kilter, it would hit me, but that's not really a deal. When I'm moving and I'm running in this direction or sitting in a vehicle, it wants to fall down to the sides. And when you're thinking about setting up your gun belt, those longer items that you may carry, you kind of want those here and not here or in your back, because you'll either bend back or sit in a truck or, you know, bend down, sit in a buggy, whatever you're doing, and they'll tend to dig and rub and just be incredibly uncomfortable. And then you won't want to carry it, and then that defeats the entire purpose. So following the knife, I have my primary weapon system mag. Now this may be an other mag system, but right now it's a 5.56, also an S-Tac. And what I recommend, they make a short, a mid, and a long. This is a long. And what that does is allows me to run the mag a lot lower down on my belt, which hangs a little bit lower on my leg, but what it doesn't do is get up on my body. And why that's important for me is because I can't reach. You know, you see these guys doing the combat reloads like this kind of thing. What if I can't move? I want to be able to just grab it and go without having to change my entire body position. And running the mag lower allows me to do that. And I still love the S-Tac, works really, really well. I will say a caveat with the S-Tac, if you have to do an operation where you require, you know, a secondary type of retention, right? So this uses a friction retention. They come out real well. They're Kydex molded. They work well. You can adjust them. But if you're doing something or you're just used to having to run a bungee over the top, you can still do that with this. Typically you'll end up having to run, I would get their Molly version and then just run the Molly over and back into your belt. But there's other types. I've run flaps for a long time because I liked keeping my gear dry and clean, especially when I was in moon dust. But this is kind of what I have now. It works well for out here. It works out for training. It works out for just a lot of things. All right, so I mount my Refuge Medical, which you can now read, upside down on the small of my back. I'll explain why. And it comes down to mobility and being able to get it out. I can't reach behind me and pull up. I can't do this. And my belt's here and I gotta pull this kit out. I just can't do it. I'm not flexible enough. But what I can do is pull down. So I can pop this down, pull it out very easily. And that's why I mount it upside down. And I chose the Refuge Medical Kit because frankly, it is probably the best kit I've found over the dozens of different IFAKs I've been issued over the years. They do make smaller ones, they do make bigger ones. I've been issued both of them, but I really like how this is self-contained, can come out, keeps everything clean, keeps it, contained, and I can get to it. It has everything I need and not a lot of the things I don't. There's a few things I may pull out, just individual personal preference, or maybe add a little bit more, and there's just enough room where you can make that work. But all in all, made in America, tough, very easily accessible, doesn't take up a lot of room, and really good piece of kit, highly recommend it, and I recommend mounting it upside down. All right, so the purpose of the belt is the gun, I guess? I don't really know. So that's where it gets its name, so let's talk about it. This is an M117. It is in a Safariland ALS holster, Surefire light, multi-cam wrap. It is a drop system. It's got a QLS here or there on that. That's because I swapped this gun around a lot in different holster assemblies on this belt. Thing to note, I keep it in this position, much like where you see this one right now, but it isn't a drop leg, unlike this. And that's to help me clear my armor and the rest of the things that are on my body. Here, if you can see, and I draw, I have to come up and twist the gun out immediately. I don't really have a lot more upward movement in my shoulder and my arm. This allows it to be a little bit lower, a little bit faster, obviously less concealable, but that's not what this whole thing is designed for. So I recommend that kind of not a low drop. I don't like having a thigh holster. I know some people have used it. I got issued one years ago. I had to use it, and all it did was cause chafing and rubbing and clunking on stuff and getting caught in the vehicle, and I ditched it. And this is kind of one of the best systems. I also highly recommend a solid, hard mount, unlike a plastic one that flexes a lot more. Whether or not you want to run a leg strap or not is kind of up to you. I don't, but I know a lot of guys do. Quick talk on holsters. This is not a level 2 holster, so it's not really used in that capacity. If you need a level 2 holster, there are other options out there. This is not one. It's just kind of set up for this right now in the M17. All right, now finishing out the rest of the belt, I have a tourniquet. And some people say, well, why didn't you put it on the small of your back? Well, because that's my med kit pulls out the bottom. Well, why didn't you put it on the top? Because I can't get to it. And I want to make sure it's still there. It didn't knock off and pulled in. And I don't like having a lot of things on my back that get caught on things. So, because then you get hung up in something, you hung in a door, you get hung up in your vehicle, it gets caught on stuff. So it's in the front, it sits in this position on my body. I can easily get to it with both hands. The thing with a tourniquet is you want to be able to get to it with either hand. So this hand gets blown off, I can get to it, right? This hand gets blown off, or this hand gets blown off, I can grab it here. I guess if my legs get blown off, well, then I can get to it just as easily. I have one on my belt. What you don't see is the rest of my kit, my armor, or the other things I may have in my pockets. I have one, it sits right here, easy enough to get to. Keep an eye on it. I typically can keep this clean. I don't get it, doesn't really get dirty in there. Easy to maneuver and easy to deploy. It's retained with just a bungee system. That's just one continuous piece. And it's actually looped through on this belt, this horizontal in this configuration piece of webbing. Just loops through and attaches. So, you can pull it out, a great method. And if you want to move that around, you don't want it right there in the front, to each their own. Finally, I like to keep a small non-load rated carabiner right here in the front. For my gloves, they're just right here. I like to have gloves with me all the time. These are not fast gloves, they're just mechanics gloves. There's other ones that you can use. I use these to shoot. They also just work great to keep your hands clean and safe while you're working around. So with this belt, this is an outer belt, right? And there are 2 inner belt options that I like to run. The first is a traditional rigger's belt, but not a traditional rigger's belt. Most rigger's belts do not have this pile on the outside that will allow you to run this type of setup. So this one does, and it also has a soft loop in this vertical position. There's a link below to the NSO belt. Go check that out. You'll see me hanging off of some rocks and some other stuff. And so it works. And what's key about this is the load rating and the ability to take that load not in multiple directions. So not just like a D-ring like on the Cobra buckle in this type of direction, but just everywhere. And a key part of this is the next piece I'll show you. And that is, this is the leg harness. So if you watch that video that's linked below to the NSO belt, you'll see where I'm using this in conjunction with this through a beaner and a descender to be able to rappel. You can also hook into this and ascend out or just be retained if you needed to, secure yourself in a position where, this is not enough. You want the support of having these bigger leg straps. All right, so as I mentioned, this is a belt system. This is an outer belt. You saw the Riggers belt, that's an inner belt, and here's another inner belt option. This is the EDC belt option that I like to run most of the time just because it's a little smaller, lower profile, and when I don't need to retain myself. So I'm actually wearing one right now in multicam. This is doubled over webbing, very stiff. As you can see, it's supporting a heavy handgun. This is a full-size 1911 with a light laser. Not light, it supports it, holds my pants up, it does what it needs to do, and then it'll just attach to that outer belt when I need it. I can just slap it on. So this is a great belt. This is what I like to run most of the time because I can run it in this configuration, take this off. Like as you're seeing me here, I don't need a full battle belt or a whole setup. I can just have my pistol on and we're working just fine. I didn't have to swap my belts out. I can take this off if I wanted to and do this, and I didn't have to bring another belt. Thanks, I hope you enjoyed my gun belt setup and why I did. I hope it makes sense. If you don't like it, please comment below on what you would add or what you wouldn't do and why I'm wrong, and I will tell you why you're wrong. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notification. Thanks for watching.